Hi, my name's Marty Fisher from Sherpa Marketing, and today I'm going to talk about the importance of SEO in digital marketing, and most importantly, the art of being found. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about Sherpa. So Sherpa Marketing's been around for 24 years. It'll be 25 in January of next year. We have a little over 25 employees in multiple locations all across Canada, and we also have clients from Nova Scotia to British Columbia. And the big thing about Sherpa Marketing as a full stack marketing services company is that we really set out to answer the question, what should I do for our clients? So we're really more like a person who is a partner that works with you to solve very complex problems rather than a proxy for design or just being told what to do. And I think the most important thing as an agency that we really use as our touchstone is that our purpose is to help you, our clients, make or save money. And we do that by having an unrelenting approach to proving and measuring what we're doing is working for you. By the end of my presentation, you should have some really neat little quick-hitting facts that you can shoot off the cuff at your next dinner party. You'll have a bit of a handle on how we look at marketing as a 360-degree kind of operation. You'll have a very good grasp of the importance of SEO. And I'm going to explain a little bit of the difference between technical SEO and sort of that other softer side. We like to call it the dark arts. I'm going to give you some actual tips and tricks that you can start on today to actually start making your website perform better. And then there will obviously be a later Q&A session. So the whole reason for me to be here is to basically create a forum in which we can share. You guys, when it comes to Q&A, can kind of vent. We can all collaborate. And hopefully I'm going to educate you a little bit, and maybe I can learn from you in return. So here's some quick hitters. First, in today's marketing world, customer journeys are really messy. We have sort of this combination of the digital and analog worlds, and because of that, customers can go on and off the customer journey whenever and wherever they want. So we at Sherpa think of it a little bit like you're in Manhattan and you can hop on the subway and you can go to MoMA, or you can go to the Met, or you can go to Broadway, and you can do all of that in one day. So the thing about today's messy customer journey is that you have to be present and showing the best version of yourself at any point that a customer wants to be able to interact with you. So here's something I want you to just look at and let that sink in for a bit. But 94% of people use at least one search channel for the consideration of the purchase of a good or service. So think about this for a second. When was the last time any of you made a major purchase decision without consulting some form of internet channel? I bet you none of you are raising your hands right now. And so let's think about things now in terms of the world that we live in right now. So what has COVID done to SEO and search? Well, 700% increase year over year for the term in stock. For the term in stock. Just think about that. 7x year over year. 3,000% increase year in year, search increase for the search term curbside pickup. And 600% increase for click and collect year over year. Just some mind-blowing data. And here's another one, the effect of smartphones. 82% of us turn to our device to help them make a product purchase decision actually in store. So I think you can start to get an idea when you see these stats, how important it is that you are A, found, and B, delivering great content or information when people end up at your website. And here's something that's really interesting as well. It's not just Google anymore. In fact, social search is gaining ground relative to Google. So between 2015 and 2018, there was a 30% increase in people using social search to find products and to learn and inform their decisions. And here's a really telling stat that's quite interesting as well. So on the right-hand side, you have basically the four major age demographic groups split out, because obviously the youngest aren't really using the internet that much yet. But you can see that at the millennial and the Gen Z generations, that if you look on the left-hand side, there's actually an equivalent or just a little bit more in the case of Gen Z use of social networks for searching to get information on products than actually a traditional search engine. So not only is it actually important to think about how your website works, but now you have to also think about your social presence and the content that you're putting out there. But for today's purposes, we're going to focus on websites and we're going to focus on search engine optimization. So before I go too deep, I'm just going to share with you sort of Sherpa's philosophy when it comes to marketing and how we look at it in a 360-degree kind of view. And so everyone here, of course, has seen the sales funnel, so that's no surprise to everyone. But if you look at the buyer's journey on the left-hand side, you can see all the different tools that we have at our disposal to be present and be creating that awareness to help bridge us through that consideration to action phase all the way to the retention and advocacy. So this is a really good slide because basically that's Sherpa opening up our kimono and say, hey, here's the secret sauce. These are all the tools that we use. So if we all agree that unequivocally 94% of us are searching the internet when we're considering purchasing goods or services, what is it that we are finding when we get there? It's content. And so I kind of break that into two components. There's the soft content, and then there's the hard content. On the soft side, you have sort of those attention-grabbing keywords, the pictures, the calls to action, great offers, and of course, creative that's really great and emotionally driving consumer behavior. And then there's sort of the hard component of content, which is where you're actually using data and science to find the keywords and the right offers and the channel weighting, and that's all driven through analytics and data. So once we've got your attention, then how are we driving that? So we're driving it through SEM, sponsored social, and of course, like today's talk, SEO. And of course, there's also email and text and traditional mass media. But all of that is really intending to get your attention to ultimately drive that 94% to the website. And so that's really what happens then once you get to the website. What are we doing? So we're looking at analytics, and then we're performing inbound or outbound marketing, and then pulling you into that CRM system so that we're managing the long-term relationship once we've built that. So that's really how Sherpa looks at marketing in that 360-degree view. So we're always asking ourselves, hey, if you're doing a billboard, how does that drive someone to a website? And what do we want the visitor to do once they get to the website and once they're on the website and have done what we wish them to do, and then what? So we kind of call it the philosophy of no dead ends. So the importance of SEO. I mean, it's the elephant in the room, right? Google. It literally has the power to make or break you. And I'm going to show you how much power Google has in a couple of telling graphs here. So this first one shows the importance of top organic ranking. So basically, if you're number one in search, you are going to get the lion's share of clicks. And in fact, if you're in the top three, 62% of those conversions or clicks go to the top three. So to the winners go the spoils. And if you're in the number 10 spot, you're literally out of the running already. And never mind if you're on the second page. So that is how important it is that you show up. And there's another way of looking at it, which is even more telling, which is when you use branded keywords, you're getting even more of a share of that click. And branded, just in case you don't know, is when you have your name in it. So that's that, like, it's basically be on the top 3 or don't succeed. So that's how important it is to consider having some effort, and effort, I guess, is time, and time equals money. So make sure that you're setting some money aside to get this done. The next slide shows the value, however, of long tail search. And so I like to articulate long tail search this way. So, many years ago, there's a young guy who was looking for an engagement ring. So it's like, okay, I type in engagement ring. Well, that was kind of futile because I got a whole bunch of results that were like from all over the world that really didn't make sense. So like any person, they would go through and start adding in qualifying words to get better search. So it would be diamond engagement ring, cushion cut, X, carats, and Y clarity. So that's what you start doing to create the longer tail. And in fact, you can see from this graph that actually, even though the lion's share of clicks on short tail goes to the top 3, it's a whole different ball game when you start getting into those longer tail, more qualified searches. And really, what would you rather have? I mean, obviously, if you just type in diamond ring, that's a less qualified prospect than someone who's gone in and put in 1.5 carat, cushion cut, D color, etc. That person is basically qualifying themselves by typing in a more qualified and longer tail search. So this is actually where we would encourage you to spend most of your time and energy, is actually finding those keyword specific, longer 4 to 6 word phrases that are going to capture and bring people and hold them on your website. So we basically break SEO into 2 sort of phases, if you want. One is what we would call technical SEO, and then the other one is kind of like black magic or a dark art. It's a lot harder to do, and it's a lot more of the magic per se versus the technical. So first, I'm going to start with the technical SEO. So technical is really knowable and doable. And there's all kinds of tools out there that actually can help you uncover the things that you need to do technically on your website in order to get it to perform better in Google search ranking. It is, however, very fussy, detail-oriented, and time-consuming work. So if you have someone at your shop or your business that is particularly strong as a nitpicker, they're the perfect person to task with this job. And I would also say that having done what we've done at Sherpa for as long as we have, we've noticed that it's something that is often a step that is skipped or forgotten by many other vendors. And so I just list for your information 3 tools that are very accessible and easy for you to use: GTmetrix, Screaming Frog, and Google Page Speed Insights are all things that you can plug in that will literally pour out a report telling you what it is you need to do in order to get a better score, which will then in turn help you with your ranking. So that's the technical SEO. The other side is organic SEO. And so we kind of look at this as the holy grail. And it takes a long time and a lot of effort, but it's what it is it's content and intent driven, which is much more tricky. And it is a dark art. And if anyone says that they can kind of get you that #1 ranking, in 2 weeks, they're probably lying, and you should question whether they're actually a good vendor or not. But the one tool that does help you keep track of how you're doing is called AWR Cloud, and we employ it at Sherpa, and it basically allows us to plug in a whole bunch of key search phrases that we know we want to rank well on, and allows us to put in our competitors by geography and see how we're doing in different geographies against our competitors on particular search terms. So if you're not using AWR or something similar to that, you really should look it up. So now I'm going to give you some SEO tips and tricks. This is actually some of the goods. Now, I do not want to misrepresent my abilities. I have very smart people working with me at Sherpa Marketing, so they help me put this together. And when we get to the Q&A, if there's something that I can't answer for you, I will certainly take note of that and then take it back to my team, and I'll be sure to get back to you with an answer. So the first, and I would say perhaps the most important thing, is that Google is trying to get really smart. So you want to align the content on your website with the intent of the person who's typing in the query. So the intent is what is the purpose in Google's mind behind every search query. And understanding that and then returning good results is Google's ultimate priority right now. And pages that rank on the first page have all passed Google's algorithmic litmus tests on search intent. So we use what's called Google Moments. It's a Google term, but it's basically those moments when a person turns to that smartphone or computer or whatever it is to basically act on a need. And so it's those I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, or I want to buy kind of moments that we all sort of have. And when we have those intent-rich moments, it's really important that as a business, we want to be there, be found, be useful, and be accountable. And what I mean when I say accountable is that, if there's a contact form or a chat bot, that the contact form actually works and you follow up. Or if there's a chat bot, that someone is actually on the other end of that answering questions when people need them to be answered. So I talked about the how do I, when do I, where is the best, who is. Not only are those the things that we type in, but as we get further along, those are the things that we're saying. Hey Alexa, what time is it? Hey Alexa, tell me a joke. Hey Alexa, tell me what the weather is. So those are, all that sort of intent is becoming more verbose, and we're starting to be able to speak our actual questions in a very human way. So I'm going to talk about intent a little bit further. So basically, Google kind of knows what it is you're trying to do based on your query. So if you look at the one that I typed in here, which I think was, how do I cook a perfect steak? It knows that I'm trying to figure out how to cook a steak. It's not going to try and sell me a steak. It's going to give me recipes, and it's going to give me things that will actually satisfy that query in the best possible way. And so Google's doing a really, really good job of that. So what are the different types of intent? So first you have informational. So informational is a search that falls in sort of the intent when a user is looking for something specific. So it could be like my Alexa example earlier. What's the weather today? That provides a very instant and knowable result. Or something really complex like, how does a diesel engine work? That requires a bit more of an in-depth explanation. And then there's navigational intent. So that's where the searcher or your prospect is looking for a specific website or app. So that could be when it's like, instead of what, many of us do, it's like instead of typing in facebook.com at the address bar, we type in Facebook or Amazon or Nike actually in the search bar and then end up getting at it through that search as opposed to putting it in the address bar. So navigational is one type of intent. Another one is commercial. So that's when a user is looking for a specific product, but actually hasn't made the best decision, or sorry, hasn't made their final decision yet. So it could be something like, hey, what are the best cross-training shoes? Or give me a list of the best 13-inch laptops that are available right now. Those are all examples of a commercial search. The next one is transactional. So now we've kind of moved down the buyer's journey a little bit more, and the intent is to purchase. They've made the decision to buy a specific product or tool or whatever it is. So that could be something like buy a Google Pixel 4 XL or buy AG graduate jeans. So that's a transactional search. So intent is sort of one thing we want to do in SEO. Now we're moving into something which is called write compelling title tags and meta descriptions. So you can see here I've just snipped an ad out from one of searches that I did recently because we do quite a bit of it work in ag. So I've grabbed something on Invigor. So you can see that the title tag is the BASF Invigor canola hybrids. And then the meta tag is the information below that that sort of tries to satisfy a little bit more like a mini ad, as it were. So these things are super important, these title tags and meta tags. They're the clickable headlines that appear in the search results, and they're really critical from an SEO perspective. And this is right out of Google's playbook. So titles are critical to giving users quick insight into the content of a result and why it's relevant to their query. And it's often the piece of information that you see that basically is that go, no-go to whether you're going to actually click further and go to that web page. So here's some title tag tips. So say that 3 times fast. So number 1, you want to include your target keywords. 2, write a title that matches the search intent. 3, avoid creating duplicate title tags. And 4, avoid keyword stuffing. And 5, be descriptive, but also don't be overly verbose and concise. So I'll go back and explain a couple of things. So duplicate title tags could be basically a particular page title that you just got you ran out of steam or energy or the will to kind of change things, and you end up with a bunch of pages that have the same title tag. That won't help you. And the other one is keyword stuffing, which used to be a really solid tactic, but it isn't anymore. So Google really doesn't like you just jamming it full of all kinds of different keywords. What should be in there is the keywords that line up or match the content on the page. Meta tags. So that's a description or a brief discovery of a page for search engine results page ranking. And it's the one that's displayed below the title tag. So meta descriptions don't directly impact the search rankings, but obviously, because it kind of supports the ad, think of like a magazine ad. You have the headline that catches you, and then you have the subhead that kind of, pulls you in further. And that's what this is for. This is that thing that will influence you a little bit more and should basically inform and create interest for the users. It's like that little mini sales pitch that page is really what you're looking for. And so, meta tag tips. So when writing your meta descriptions, make sure that they're unique or as unique as they can be for each page. Use action-oriented copy. Do include your keywords. Match the intent of the search, and if you can, make it accurate and as short as possible. Another tip, optimize your images. So there's really some important and again, very knowable and doable things here. So know when it makes sense to use a PNG or when it makes sense to use a JPEG. And for the love of all that is holy, please make sure that your images are optimized in terms of the size. So there are numerous free tools out there, whether it's Tiny, PNG, or Image Optim, that you can actually use to get your image sizes down. I'll show an actual example of what happens to web page scoring and ranking and speed when you have really big images loaded onto your site. Another thing that you can do to optimize your images is actually not just the file format or the size, but the alt text. Believe it or not, adding that descriptive text to what the picture actually is really important and can have a significant impact on your page ranking. And I know it's something that we often skip, but it is something that adds tremendous value to indexing your pages, particularly if it's a page that is image heavy. So you should be describing what the image is, what it describes, those sorts of things. And then the next one is lazy loading your images. And that's a technique basically that defers the loading of non-critical resources at page load. So it's basically, it's getting as much of the important things on a page in front of the user as quickly as possible, and the non-sort of critical visual elements kind of build themselves later or only loaded when users need them. And trust me when I tell you this, that just think of your own behavior. If that page takes forever to load, how many times have you just bailed on that page and you never even got to see what content or images were there? Next tip, optimize your page speed. So if your pages do take a long time to load, Google's going to penalize you. You're going to put you in the penalty box and you're going to be in there for a really long time. So it's really, really important to consider those things separately. And certainly I would recommend that you use a tool like GTmetrix. And just for a proof point, I've showed two examples here on the next two slides. So this is a client of ours that we built an optimized content managed website for, that we handed the keys over, and then they were able to administer it themselves. And unfortunately, even though we told them how important image optimization and certain other things were, they just were uploading these gargantuan images and doing all kinds of server-side stuff that we really suggested that they not do. And you can see that they ended up with a failing grade from GTmetrix. But when you run one of these reports, it will tell you how poorly you're doing, but it will also tell you, hey, here are the things that you can do to fix it. And so there's a failing grade because we gave the client the power to administer the website themselves, but they didn't optimize their images. And then here's something that looks good when you actually take the time to do a good job and maintain that on an ongoing basis. And guess which one of those sites had better results in terms of page ranking on Google? Absolutely, Woolwich Dairy. So now we're really into the weeds. So internal links. So that's basically the ability to jump from one page to another easily within your own website. And one of the neat things that you can do is find those top ranking pages on your own site and link those into pages on your poorer performing sites that might need a boost. So you can use Google Analytics to find out what your top performing pages are, and then you can now figure out how to put those links into the content on other poorer performing pages to help try and lift those up and get more visits to those pages. So ultimately, making your user experience a little bit deeper so that they're coming in and exploring or self-discovering for longer periods of time and more pages just by improving your own cross-linking between your internal pages. And I would recommend that you look into tools like SEMrush or Screaming Frog to identify and fix some of those internal linking errors on your website, or also the opportunities to do better. Next one, user experience. This is the place where I really, of course, live most of my day, because I'm not so technical as some of the people that work at Sherpa, but user experience. It's such an overlooked thing sometimes. And so basically, besides making a fast website, you really need to make sure that it's easy to use and intuitive. Don't make it sort of dead end, or don't make it so that people can't get on to the next thing that they need to do. So, don't put impediments or create a frictional, an experience with a lot of friction, because that makes for a lousy user experience. So some of the things that you can do, of course, we've talked about already. So there's the subheadings piece. So the H1, H2, and H3 tags. That helps Google understand your content better, and really also makes your text more accessible. So those are sort of those headings and subheadings that kind of create those section breaks, or the just jump to points on your websites. Make sure that you're using those so that people can get to that content quicker. Of course, make your content visually appealing. And they really do understand visual content a little bit better. So make sure that you're using things like infographics and imagery that is relevant to the pages that you're on, so that you're not boring people to death. Ultimately, what I would say is people really don't like to read. So the more pictures and video that you can actually use, the more likely you're going to be able to retain and hold someone on a page. The other one, it's just, if you don't have to use a pop-up, just don't. I mean, they're not horrible from an SEO perspective, but they're just annoying. So if you have to use a pop-up, please use it when it's a must, not something that is just, I want to pop up because I want to pop up. Use it because it actually drives something meaningful in your business that you need to capture some data or whatever it is, but use it sparingly. The other one is kind of one that's near and dear to my heart. So please don't be afraid to use white space. Just because you have a canvas doesn't mean you have to fill the canvas with images and text, that's, microscopic and hard to read. Make sure that, that's the beauty of the web. You have as much space as you need. So think about readability, think about accessibility, particularly as things like AODA become more important. And if you do that, we can actually, Google has said that basically the comprehension rate and understanding is about 20% better for the user. Next one's kind of an obvious one, but it's still amazing that the time and diligence isn't taken to do this. And so it's the actual URL structure. So good URL structure provides the search engine and the user a really, really good idea of what the destination page is about. So here's sort of a neat one on the right. So on the right-hand side, it's like going from, I can't wait to look at this, to like, I am never, ever going to go on this page. And it's basically, do I want to see puppies that are adorably confused by a rainbow? Or do I want to go to F hashtag load delay? I'm not likely to go to that load delay page in any case. So take the time to go in and make your page titles make a lot more sense on the URL structure side. Another one, and this is probably where you really get into the dark art, but it basically, if you create really, really good content, there's a higher likelihood that some other website that has high domain authority, and high domain authority basically means, a website that has a heck of a lot of users. So a good example of a high domain authority website would be cbc.ca. So if there was the ability to somehow have them pick up some content or story that you put on your website, Google knows that CBC has a very high domain authority, and a backlink to your site from them is a key ranking signal as far as Google's concerned that, if CBC thinks it's good, then we think it's good. And so if your pages have a higher number of backlinks, it increases your chances of ranking higher in search results. And it's something that, like I said, it's a dark art. It's really hard to do, but it does have a significant impact on your website. Next, are you content with your content? I don't know. Are you? But I can tell you unequivocally that content still is king. Long-form content always ranks better on Google. And this claim has been backed over and over by either Google themselves or other companies that are in sort of the same space like SEMrush. And basically what they've been able to find is that long-form articles or posts that have over 3,000 words actually get 3 times more traffic and 4 times more share and 3.5 times more backlinks than articles of average length of 900 to 1,200 words. And that, when I learned that, I was so disappointed, because I remember when I was working on one of the generations of the Sherpa website where I was like, nobody reads. So, what am I going to do? I'm going to try and write really clever and concise content and basically hope that helped people stay on page and want to consume what it was that I was putting out there. And so we know now that was a poorly informed strategy, but we haven't really stopped trying to write short, concise, clever copy. But what we have done and really doubled down on is making sure that we're doing really, really compelling things like meaningfully long case studies and white papers and blog entries and all that have really long and compelling stories that people want to consume, and have lots of content that matches the intent that we're trying to connect with. And Google really, I can't say this enough times, it's focus, when you create or do something, focus on the needs of your user versus trying to kind of push all the right buttons, whether it's technical or not, on SEO. Basically, Google's pretty smart. People are pretty smart. If you continue to never relent on the creation of great content, it will ultimately work out in your favor. So what you want to do, though, is you want to try and find a nice balance between search volume and keyword difficulty. And so, it's basically you're trying to concoct this magic elixir of words that actually match up with what it is people are looking for, but also with the things that you need to say. And I always think of a really good story that kind of enlightens or highlights the importance of good content. So I'd done some work years ago for Ag Growth Industries, and one of their divisions was Wheat Heart, and they have these really cool machines that they call post pounders. And so we're going through the website analytics, and we're going like, how come we know we make one of the best pieces of equipment in the industry, but we are not ranking well, and we are not getting the web traffic that we think we should based on the people's knowledge of our brand and things like that. And what we learned after discovery was we had written the copy without once using the term post-drill. So we used our own vernacular and our own reference to how we described the product that was not congruent with what the actual search term that people were using. So we went back and fixed that up and started to get the results that we needed. So, the long tail keywords, they tend to have the low search volume, as I said earlier, but in some cases, they're going to actually connect you to the customers that you need and the customers that you want. And if that, getting into the weeds and that granularity, then at least kind of go for the middle of the pack, which is a mid-tail keyword and a little bit more of a medium keyword difficulty. So, just to kind of put a bow on the content really being king. So there's that two components going back to what I talked about earlier. So there's the soft content, which is the attention-grabbing words, pictures, and calls to action, and the creative that is something that people will connect with and is sort of creates that emotional reaction with the user. And then there's the hard part of content, which is doing the research. Figure out what the activating keywords are. Figure out what the best offers are. Figure out how to weight your channels and where you need to be. And make sure that you use the data and analytics to help you in that discovery of what are the right offers and what are the right keywords. So I'm getting close to the end here, but here's a couple of quick ones to also keep in mind on the SEO standpoint. So if you want to rank well and you don't have a responsive website, I mean, come on, it's 2020, it's time. Get a responsively designed website, because if you don't, Google will rank you very poorly on mobile search. And just in case you weren't aware, mobile search comprises about 50% of all search. So you have to do that as well. Another one, HTTPS. By now, I should hope that most of you have a security certificate installed on your website. But if you don't, please get one installed, because that unsecure/secure notification when you get to an address bar really gives website users the heebie-jeebies. So, we've all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Well, here's Maslow's hierarchy of SEO needs. And Moz is one of the big companies that basically ranks and creates domain authority. So basically, from sort of the bottom to the top, you're going from sort of the easy to do and essential things to all the way up to the higher and harder to do things, but the things that will actually help you win. So you've got, first, you got to make sure that your website can be crawled. Make sure that you have compelling content. Make sure that you've got optimized keywords with a great user experience that has content that is worthy of sharing and backlinks and citations. And then that the URLs, the titles, and the descriptions are all thought of through a bit of a marketing lens so that they line up a lot better with what it is the customer or prospect is expecting to see when they get to that page. And then when you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, then get into that snippet sort of schema markup to make sure that you're standing out in search engine result page ranking. So that's my presentation today. Thank you for your time. I tried to get through quite a bit of content in a relatively short amount of time. And, at this point, I know we're all virtual. We like to see Pam with her questions. So if you have any questions, I look forward to the next time we get to connect and go through that step. So thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing from you.